I was appointed recently by the ACT government to review its supermarket competition policy, and this competition policy for supermarkets has attempted to maintain a balance of competitive retail grocery performance throughout the territory in respect of trying to get that balance of keen prices, service delivery, convenience, product diversity, innovation and adaptation to changing market trends. And this is the first time that I've actually had to compete at one of these sessions with the wind, and I can hear the howling Gungahlin wind, but there you go. It's something that we've all got to deal with, and hopefully you're not going to have trouble hearing me at this close distance. Just to give you an overview of where we're coming from in this, and there has been a little bit of publicity about it, but it's maybe good for people to understand why we're doing this review. It was prompted in part by some recommendations out of last year's national ACCC inquiry into the competitiveness of retail grocery prices in Australia. And in my former role, prior to taking up a role advising the ACT government about a month ago, I had been a commissioner with the ACCC, and I was a member of that ACCC grocery prices inquiry. So I know some of the background to what was behind that inquiry. And there were two elements of what the ACCC recommended that the ACT government and some of the other states and territories are looking at. The ACCC recommended that zoning and planning regulations and the decision-making processes that affect additional supermarket space, especially where that could involve a new entrant other than the two majors that are fairly dominant in the larger supermarket space, that the processes that are involved should take into account the impact of competition between supermarkets in an area. So there was a feeling by the ACCC there are barriers to competitors to the two supermarket chains coming into some areas because of the processes that are involved. In addition, the ACCC also found that if larger independent stores could achieve better wholesale terms of supply of dry groceries, that combined with the fact that they are already fairly competitive in terms of their prices on fresh product, that would make them more competitive with the majors. And the ACCC had a bit to say about the role that's currently played by the monopoly or virtually monopoly wholesaler to the third independent source, the Metcash, about how its interaction occurs with the independent stores, and that there are opportunities for the independent stores to become more competitive. So how are we in the ACT, how's this review being conducted? My task has been to talk in depth to key industry stakeholders, ACT planners and other arms of government, to establish how the planning regulations and decision making affect retail grocery competition and how that has worked in the ACT. I've been asked to advise on a framework and principles that could be applied to the processes to enable entry of larger independent stores, including Aldi, where that would contribute to the upgrading of competition outcomes in the ACT. So that's the basis on which we're holding the review. I would stress that the spirit and the intent of this process is not to just protect competitors, it's to promote good competition in the full sense of the word. So the background in the ACT, just to run over what is it that we've got at the moment. The ACT does have a retail tiering comprising local centres, group centres and town centres in which supermarkets have played a key role as anchor tenants. The ACT does have some fairly unique characteristics. It has a higher proportion of the grocery and food retail market being supplied by supermarkets than in other capital cities. In other capital cities we have a higher proportion of the non-supermarket, the speciality stores, the fresh food markets are a higher proportion. I think that's starting to change in the ACT. I think those other sources are either re-emerging or certainly coming forward. And the second thing where the ACT is a bit different from other state capitals is that the independent supermarkets, like IGA, in the ACT actually have a greater share of supermarket space compared to the other capital cities. This derives almost entirely from the fact that the independent supermarkets dominate local shopping centres in the ACT. It's quite unusual the extent to which the planning hierarchy, the local centre arrangements have caused that to happen. But part of my commentary will be about how that's played out. The independent supermarkets are generally much smaller than the major chains. The IGA type stores are typically in the range of 300 to 800 square metres with a few exceptions. I've had the experience over the last few weeks of actually trawling around many of the supermarkets in the ACT and had quite an experience going and talking to many of the IGA owners who are very dedicated and professional and very good operators. In fact, some of them, when they're showing me through their stores, just indicate they're almost like housewives tidying up their everything, every shelf. And even when one of the leading operators took me to another colleague's store, he was tidying up the shelves in that guy's store. So obviously it sort of gets in the genes a little bit. But they're certainly of a smaller size, generally in the range, as I said, 300 to 800 square metres. This compares to the major chains that are almost universally in excess of 2,500 square metres, and the major chains, Coles and Woolworths, have gone on record as saying they do not as a rule consider that a store of anything less than the 2,500 square metres as suitable to their business models. We do have Woolworths in a few stores in Canberra that are smaller than that, but I'll come to that issue in a moment. The only independent supermarkets in Canberra that operate in the second tier, we have the local tier, we have the group tier as the middle tier. The only ones that operate in that larger category are the Superbarn stores at Canberra City Centre, Waniassa and Kaolin, plus the Super IGA store at Hawker, which is currently being expanded. Until 1996, there were in fact 4 other independent stores in the group centres, and they were the Cannon stores that in 1996 they were acquired by Woolworths. They were in Erindale, Canberra, Kippax and Corwell, so 3 of those Tuggeranong group centres were Cannon stores. At the time that these were acquired by Woolworths with approval or clearance from the ACCC, it also included in that acquisition was Cannon's wholesale distribution centre at Hume that Woolworths subsequently closed, cutting off an important alternative source of wholesale supply to Canberra's independent retailers. And the independent retailers that have been round for many decades that I've spoken to very much lament that loss of competition from that source of wholesaler.